Am I audible now?
Yes,
Hello.
miss.
And you are visible the screen or not?
Yes, miss.
Okay. Today we learn about the last second unit, and that is the unit 6, exception handling. You learn the concept of exception handling since from last 2 years in FYBSc as well as in SYBSc, and again the same concept in the TYBSc in the Java programming language. The concept, the main core concept is same. The difference is only in the syntax, and what do you mean by the exception handling? This concept is similar, but the syntax may be vary from language to language. So before going to the details of how the exceptions are handled in a Java, first you understand the what do you mean by the exception, what do you mean by the exception handling, and what do you mean by the error? Because as we are the students, as you are the students of computer science, always or frequently you pronounce the term error. Means you frequently use the term error. So first of all, you understand what do you mean by the error and exception, and what is the difference in between. So all of you know that error means what? Error means something problem, and that problem just may stop the termination of your program. Uh, in the general definition of error is it indicates serious problem that a reasonable application should not try to catch. Both the error and exceptions are the subclasses of java.lng.throwable. LNG is the package which consists of all the exception classes, and this is a particular class, throwable class, which consists of the errors as well as the exceptions. Errors are the conditions which cannot get recovered by any handling technique. See, in case of the exception, the exceptions are handled with the particular technique, but errors are not handled with some technique. And it surely cause the termination of your program abnormally. Means once the error occur, your program termination occurs. Error belong to unchecked type and mostly occur at run type. Generally, all these errors are called as the unchecked type and mostly occur at the run type. What do you mean by the check type and unchecked type? That you will understand in the next slide. Some of the example of errors are out of memory error, system crash error. Besides that, you know the various kinds of error, just like the syntax error, compile time error, means compilation error, some logical errors. Okay, so similarly, the out of memory error and system crash errors are also belongs to the error category. What do you mean by the exception? Once again, the exceptions are the conditions. Errors are also the conditions. Exceptions are also the conditions that occur at the runtime and may cause the termination of program. See the difference. There is a little difference. Here may cause the termination of program, but here it surely cause the termination of program. Means in case of exception, it may uh, cause the termination of program. If you handle properly the exceptions, then there is no possibility of termination of program. Exceptions are recovered using the try, catch, and throw keyword. Just like the last year, you already learned the three keywords: try, catch, and throw. The same blocks are used in case of the exception handling. With this try, catch, and throw keywords, you can recover the exceptions. Exception is unwanted event that interrupts the normal flow of program. Obviously, the exception is the unwanted event and that disturbs the normal flow of your program, and it may cause the termination of your program. So there is a difference between the error and exceptions. The errors are not there. In case of errors, there is no any recovery technique, but in case of exception, you can catch the errors, you can catch the exceptions with the exception handling block: try, catch, and throw. What do you mean by exception handling? The exception handling is one of the powerful mechanism and which handle the runtime errors so that normal flow of application can be maintained. Means you use the concept of exception handling. You use this technique, and with the help of this technique, you can just maintain the normal flow of application without termination of your program. So these are the simple basic terms. The next point is types of exceptions. There are the two kinds of exceptions: check exceptions and uncheck exceptions. What do you mean by the check exceptions? All exceptions other than the runtime exceptions are known as the exceptions. Okay, means all exceptions other than runtime exceptions, means you just left out all the runtime exceptions, and the remaining exceptions are called as the check exceptions. Compiler checks them during the compilation, and at the time of compilation, compiler checks the check exception to see whether the programmer has handled them or not. If these exceptions are not handled or declared in the program, then you will get the compilation error. Okay, and the for example of check exceptions are SQL exceptions, IO exceptions, class not found exceptions. Means these are the you can say likely these are similar to the system exceptions, system defined exceptions, I exceptions, class not found exception, SQL exceptions. And the second category is unchecked exceptions. Unchecked exception means built-in exceptions, means exceptions which are already available into the system's library are called as the unchecked exceptions, and the runtime exceptions are called as the unchecked exceptions. Okay, you only remember the word runtime exceptions are called as the unchecked exceptions. So these exceptions are not checked at the compile time. The above exceptions, check exceptions, are checked at the compile time, but these are not checked at the compile time. So compiler do not know whether the programmer has handled or not, and it is the responsibility of programmer to handle these exceptions and provide the safe exit. And the simple example of built-in exceptions or the unchecked exceptions are arithmetic exception, null pointer exceptions, array index out of bound exceptions. So these are the types, or sorry, these are the examples of unchecked exceptions. Okay, now these are some kinds of the various exceptions. The first exception is the arithmetic exceptions. See here, when this arithmetic exception is raised, or when it occurs, when the arithmetic error occurs, such as division by zero. All of you are very familiar with this exception, division by zero. Means whenever the division by zero error is occur, such a kind of the arithmetic error occur, the arithmetic exceptions will be raised. Array index out of bound exception. When this array index out of bounds exception will be raised, when the array index is out of bounds, means suppose for example at the time of declaration of array, if you are uh, giving the size as a 5, array size as a 5, and at the and in the programming, just you are assigning the value to the sixth element, though you have given the size as a 5, and in that situation the array index out of bound exception will be raised. Index out of bound, this is again similar to the previous. Some type of index is out of bounds, means in case of the looping concept, for loop, you are assigning the index and that is out of bounds, means out of range. Negative array size means array created with negative size, means instead of 5, just you have given -5. So the negative array size exception raised. Null pointer exception, invalid use of null reference, means if you are using the null reference, and in that situation the null pointer exception will be raised. Number format exceptions, invalid conversion of string to numeric format, means there is a wrong conversion between the string and numeric format, then number format exceptions will be occur. String index out of bounds, it attempt to index outside the bounds of string, means suppose for the string you have assigned the 7 characters, and in the program you are referring the out of 7, means ninth character, 10th character. So in that case the string index out of bounds exception will be raised. File not found exception, this is a very simple. If you are trying to access the particular file and the file is not present in your system, not exist in your system, in that situation the file not found exception will be raised. Once again, IO exception is very simple. IO means input output. If there is some problem between the input and output, means IO failure is there, then in that case the IO exception. What do you mean by the IO? IO means in case of input, there may be the possibility of the file will not be read, means unable to read from the file, and in that case the IO failure occurs and IO exceptions will be raised. Stack overflow exception, it is caused when the system runs out of stack space, means for system the some stack space is reserved, and if the stack space is full, then it gives you the error the system runs out of stack space, means stack overflow exception. Okay, and now this is very important. Exception handling mechanism that you have already learned in the last year also. Uh, Understand the working or the exception handling mechanism first. In the figure, you see there are the two different blocks. The first block is a try block and the second block is the catch block. In between try and catch block, one arrow is there and that arrow indicates the throw exception object. So what contains in the try block? The try block always consists of the statements which create the error. That cause the exception means what? Or at right side, I have used here the word exception object creator. Means what? In try block, always you have to write the statement so that the statements will create the error. And in catch block, the statements that handle the exceptions, means once the error is created in the try block, then after creation of error, that error is throws with the throw object to the catch block. And the catch block, what is the role of catch block? The catch block catches or receives the exception object and accordingly handle the exception, means according to that error it will generate the message. That's why the name is given as exception handle, sorry, exception handler. And these are some basic steps that you must know. For in case of the exception handling, first of all you know the problem, first of all you find the problem in at the time of writing the exception handling. Suppose for example I want to just write the program division by zero. So first of all I know that what I have to do, what is the problem. So first step is you just find the problem, means hit the exception. Then second step is inform that an error has occurred. See here, the first step will be in the try block. Then after that second step, by with the help of this arrow means the throw block. Now inform the error that has occurred. Then receive the error means catch. The what is the function of catch block? Only to receive the error, receive the exception object. So that's why this is the third step. And the fourth step is handle the exception, means you just print the message and take the corrective action. This is called as handle the exception. So these are the basic four steps regarding the exception handling mechanism. And this is just the syntax how to use the exception handling. Once again, I repeat here why the try block is used. The try block, this what is try? Try is the keyword, and the try consists of the number of statements which create the error. Catch block, once again, catch is the keyword, reserve word, and it catches, it receives the exception thrown by try block. Okay, and catch block place immediately after the try block like this. This is a try block, then opening brace, then some of the statements that create the error, and that's why here I have given the comment generate the exception. Generate the exception means to create the error, and just below the try block you just write the catch into the bracket exception type E. Why here I write here the exception type and E? Except because in the previous slide you have already seen the various kinds of the exceptions are available into the Java system library, just like arithmetic exception, IO exception, null exception. So you specify here the type of exception and just write here the exception object so that it gives the error message, it handles properly the exception. Clear? Do you understand up to this? Hello, unmute your mic.
Yes, Miss.
Okay, so this is just the syntax, and now this is one of the example. These are some things that try block consists of one or more statement. The catch block consists of one or more statement, or it may be blank. It may not have any statement, means it may be blank. Catch block catches the error conditions, then print the error message and continue the execution. With this example, you clear the concept of exception handling. See here, I have taken one class, Java exception example, user defined class name, Java exception example. And into that, I have written the main signature, public static void main string args. And into that, I have written the try block. And in try block, I use here integer data equal to 100 divided by 0. And here this is the statement that create the error, because this is the division by 0, and all of you know that you cannot divide by the 0 to any number. That's why this statement will create the error. After creation of error, this error will be sent to the catch block, and the catch block is ready to accept the error with the arithmetic exception type exception, and the e is the object of that exception. Okay, and after that, just I have print the e, system.out.println e, means whatever the system defined message regarding the arithmetic exception, that will be displayed onto the screen, and hence you will get the output as exception in thread main java dot lang dot arithmetic exception division by 0. Okay, means you understand that first of all in the try block you have to create the error, and in catch block you just print the message. If you do not want to give the user defined message, then you just print the exception object, and if you print the exception object, then it will automatically displays the message according to the system division by 0 and the whole statement. Okay, now multiple catch statements means you can use the more than one catch statements in the exception handling. Means for one try there may be the possibility of multiple catch statements, and that's why the name is given as multiple catch. Okay, so this is a try block. Just I have put it here. The dot dot line means this is the some code is available in the try block. Then after that I use the catch exception type 1e, then own code. Then again the second catch exception type 2 own code, exception type 3 and own code. Means you can place the multiple catch statements with the multiple exception type. Means here you put the arithmetic exception, in the second type you put the array index out of bound, in third you put the file not found exception, and that's why you use the multiple catch statements with the multiple exception types, and it just behaves like the switch statement. All of you know that the work of switch statement that you have already completed in the FYBSc switch statement. So exception of this exception object E is compared with the different catch statements, and when the match is found, the particular block will be evaluated. So this is very similar to the switch statement. The next clause is the finally statement. What do you mean by the finally? If you remember, in case of the switch statement, we have already used one default block in the switch statement. And what is the role of that default block? If there is no any match found in the switch statement, then automatically the default block will be evaluated. Very similarly, the finally statement in the Java language means very similar. The finally statement works. So finally statement can be used to handle the exception that is not caught by any of the previous catch statement. Means suppose if you are using the multiple catch statements, and if there is no match found, then in that situation if the finally is present, then this finally block will be evaluated. When the finally block is defined, this is guaranteed to execute regardless of whether exception is thrown or not. Okay, finally block can be used to perform certain housekeeping operation, means the bookkeeping operation such as closing the file, releasing the system resources. You remember that the finally, why the finally block is called as the housekeeping? because this finally block will be evaluated by default, and generally this block is reserved for the bookkeeping operations. So which are the bookkeeping operations? The bookkeeping operation means if you are using the concept of file, opening the file into the main program, then you just close that file into the finally block, as well as you just release the system resources that occupy during the program. So, and that's why it is called as the bookkeeping operations or the housekeeping operations. Okay, and this is the last topic of this chapter, creating user defined exceptions. Till we have seen there are the two different kinds of the exceptions, uncheck exception, check exceptions, or you can say the built-in exceptions, user defined exceptions. The built-in exceptions that we have already seen in the table, arithmetic IO exception, array index out of bound, etc. Creating user defined exception means what? Means user is able to create its own exception class, throw the exception, and just print the message. Means the whole process is defined by the user, and that's why it is called as the user defined exception. In Java, we can create our own exception class and throw the exception through using the throw keyword. In the exception handling mechanism, we have already seen that the throw keyword is generally used to throw the exception raised to the catch block. These exceptions are known as user defined or custom. What do you mean by custom? Custom means according to the user requirement. And that's why the word is used here, the custom. It is a synonyms of user defined. With the help of custom exceptions, you can have your own exception and message. Means with the help of this user defined exception, you create your own exceptions as you like, and you create your own message into the you just create your own message and print it through the catch block. So following is an example that demonstrate how to create the user-defined exception. One small program is here, class my exception, extends exception. See here, I have used the concept of inheritance. What is exception? Exception is the built-in class which is available in a system library of Java programming language. What is extends? Extends is the reserved word and which is generally used in case of the inheritance. And my exception is the new class that I am going to write here. My exception is a subclass and exception is a superclass. Or you can say my exception is a new class and exception is a old class. Means whatever the properties of main exception class that will be inherited into the subclass my exception, means that properties are available into the my exception class. Okay, here I have declared one variable str1 of the type string. After that I write the constructor my exception. Why it is constructor? Because the name of class is my exception and again the name of function is my exception. That's why it is a parameterized constructor, because it takes the one parameter str2 of the type string. Okay, and just I have assigned that value of string2 to the string1 variable. Now just I define the another function, public string. String is the data type, and toString. This I have here. I am writing the toString function. Into that function, just I return the message. My exception occurred plus str1. What is the meaning of plus str1? It just returns the same message. My exception occur and concatenate with the value of str1, means whatever the content of str1 that will be joined with the message my exception occurred. Clear? This is the half part of program. The next part is here I have defined the main class. What do you mean by the main class? The class which consists of the main method. In Java, the class which consists of the main method is called as the main class, and at the time of saving your program you should use the main class name you should save your program with the main class name .java. Means you save the program with example1.java. If you save with the another name, then the computer gives you the error. Because in Java, this is the rule. Always save your program with the main class. And main class means the class which includes the main method. Okay. Then try block. In try block, just I print the message starting of try block. Okay. And just throw the exception. Throw new my exception. This is my error message. This is my error message. This is a message. And I just throw this message as an object of my exception to the catch block. Okay, so after try, in the catch box, I have written here the my exception. Instead of arithmetic exception, in the last case, in the last program, we write here arithmetic exception. But instead of that arithmetic exception, here I write my own created exception, and that is a my exception. And the exception object is either you write E or you write the EXP. Okay, uh, in that catch blocks, whatever the object thrown by try block will be received by the catch, and it will display the message system.out.println catch block. And after that I have just print the content of exception object ESP system.out.println exp. Okay, so what will be the output? Output is starting of try block. See, in the previous uh, slide, in the first class, just I have read. Just 1 minute. Yes, starting of try block. System.out.println starting of try block. Due to this, the message is as it is, the message is printed on a screen as it is. Then the second is the println statement catch block, and that's why the same message is printed as it is catch block. And after that, the object my exception object will be thrown to the catch block, and catch block prints the exception object as my exception occurred. This is my error message. See here in the throw statement, I have written the message. This is my error message, and this is my error message will be concatenated to the my exception occurred, just like the previous. In string, I have written the message my exception occurred, and due to that, the message you will get in the output as my exception occurred. This is my error message. So this is about the user defined exception. So in this unit, just I take a brief review of the whole chapter. What you learn, first of all, you learn about the concept of error. What do you mean by the error? Then exception. What is the difference between the error and exception? The error may not be handled, but the exceptions can be handled with the some recovery technique, just like the try, catch, and block statements. After that, we learn the definition of exception handling, then exception handling mechanism. So before that, we have already seen the various types of the exceptions, just like the arithmetic exception, array index out of bound, and etc. And after that, we have learned the mechanism of exception handling, means how the exception handling works. With these three blocks, try, catch, and throw, with the example of division by zero. And after that, uh, we learn the concept of multiple catch, means you can use the multiple catch statements for a single try block. In that situation, you have to exercise the more than one errors in a try block, and accordingly you write the multiple catch statements. Then finally block. The finally block by default it will be executed when there is no match found between the multiple catch statements. It by default it executes the finally block. And what it contains? It contains the housekeeping operations, means the bookkeeping operations, means just like to closing of files, then release the memory resources that occupy during the programs. So this is about the finally, and the last topic is how to create the user defined exception. So in case of the user defined exception, in case of the user defined exceptions, you have to create your own exception, then throw that exception and print your own message, and that is called as the custom exception handling or the user defined exception handling. With the example, with the last example, and here the unit 6 is over. If you have any doubts, you can ask me. Otherwise, we will stop here. Okay. If you have any doubt.